أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful.
Although the theory of evolution has been utterly discredited in every field of science, there have been determined efforts to keep it alive, for various ideological reasons, for over the last 150 years. An examination of evolutionist literature shows how the evidence evolutionists have produced in support of their theory has subsequently either emerged to be fraudulent or else scientifically invalid. Even some leading evolutionists now agree on the fact that evolution possesses no tangible scientific evidence, and that the supposed proofs produced to date are all invalid and unscientific. There are so many admissions regarding the invalidity of the theory of evolution made by evolutionists that they could fill several volumes of books. Yet the theory of evolution continues to receive the support that it has failed to receive from science, from various ideological circles and part of the media, which has assumed the responsibility for propagating these circles as propaganda. These circles still impose the false and misleading evidence that even evolutionists have removed from the literature, and which have been left with absolutely no validity on society and press and media organs, as if they still represented scientific reality. Their aim is to turn people away from the fact that Allah created them, and thus convince them to the lie that they are individuals which came into being by chance and descended from apes. They seek thus to produce large masses of people stripped of all moral and spiritual values, unaware, unbelieving, unprincipled, and having a low character and low esteem, who can easily be led in the direction desired by certain centers of power. We need to have a sound knowledge of the true nature of the theory of evolution, and the kinds of false evidence on which it is built in order not to be deceived by these circles with their ulterior motives. In this film, we will be examining just some of the false and misleading evidence and deceptions that some evolutionists have come up with in order to lead people astray over the course of the last 100 years or so. A most famed of the supposed pieces of evidence proposed by evolutionists was the deceptive scheme of embryo development drawn up by the evolutionist biologist Ernst Haeckel. Darwin had asked Haeckel, a close friend of his, to contribute to his theory by telling him that he would have performed a great work by disseminating the evolutionary doctrine. Haeckel did not turn down this request and came up with a fictitious thesis in order to establish evidence in favor of evolution. He called this the theory of recapitulation. According to this thesis, during the developmental stage, living embryos undergo a short repetition of the evolutionary process that species supposedly underwent. For example, a human embryo in the mother's womb first exhibited fish and then reptile features, before finally turning into a human being. However, observations and research in modern laboratories showed that all the illustrations produced by Haeckel in order to back this theory up were fake. In its September 5, 1997 edition, the famous journal Science published an article titled "Haeckel's Embryos: Fraud Rediscovered," This is what was stated. Not only did Haeckel add or omit features, Richardson and his colleagues report, but he also fudged the scale to exaggerate similarities among species, even when there were tenfold differences in size. Haeckel further blurred differences by neglecting to name the species in most cases, as if one representative was accurate for an entire group of animals. Haeckel's drawing, looks like it's turning out to be one of the most famous fakes in biology, Richardson concludes. The magazine New Scientist noted this on the subject on October 16, 1999. In fact, Haeckel's strict law was soon shown to be incorrect. For instance, the early human embryo never has functioning gills like a fish, and never passes through stages that look like an adult reptile or monkey. Haeckel's deception went even further, that part of the embryo which Haeckel equated with the yolk sac was actually a sac that produced blood for the baby. The part that he claimed was a tail was subsequently realized to be the human backbone, which resembled a tail because it appeared before the legs. Most interestingly, 100 years before he personally admitted that the illustrations he had produced in order to support his fictitious thesis were actually fakes. After this compromising confession of forgery, I should be obliged to consider myself condemned and annihilated, if I had not the consolation of seeing side by side with me in the prisoner's dock hundreds of fellow culprits, among them many of the most trusted observers and most esteemed biologists. The great majority of all the diagrams in the best biological textbooks, treatises, and journals would incur in the same degree the charge of forgery, for all of them are inexact, and are more or less doctored, schematized, and constructed. This admission by Haeckel shows that falsehood and deception are techniques frequently resorted to by evolutionists, and that they have no hesitations about persisting in them. Yet these illustrations, which everyone knew to be false, were nevertheless taught as a scientific reality in textbooks all over the world throughout the course of the 20th century, and they are still being taught as such today.